or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please be seated here.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you state your full name for the jury and spell it for the court reporter?
Jonathan David Van Schenk. Jonathan is Jonathan. David David. Van Schenk is VAN, space capital SCHENCK.
How old are you, sir?
I'm 22.
Do you go to school, you work?
I'm currently a graduate student at Oregon State University.
What are you studying now?
I'm studying physics.
Where did you go to undergraduate?
I did my undergraduate work at Seattle Pacific University.
When did you graduate from SPU?
June of 2012. No, sorry, 2016.
What did you study at SPU?
I double majored in physics and math.
Spent a lot of time out on Miller Hall then.
Yes, I did.
Were you there the day of the shooting?
Yes, I was.
Tell us what you were doing that day, where you were.
I was on the north side of the building. Me and a friend were working on a physics project. I was using a telescope and a spectrometer to make a measurement of the spectral distribution of the sun's radiation. And so we were just kind of out there with a telescope, kind of pointing it around and taking some measurements.
Who's a friend?
Hannah Judd.
And when you say out there, is that a parking lot back there?
Yeah, the north side of the building is a parking lot. It's sort of right next to the canal trail. And so there's kind of this little short parking lot area, and then there's a trail, and then more stuff behind it. But
And is that near the machine shop?
yeah, it was probably within about 30 feet of the machine shop.
Okay. How long were you and Hannah out there that afternoon? Do you remember?
We came out, we were there for quite a while before anything had started. In my estimate, probably at least an hour.
And what do you mean anything had started? What started?
Yeah, so what I remember first is hearing some sounds that sounded something like fireworks going off. And then after a few moments, I heard somebody running. And when I looked up, I saw Thomas Fowler running toward me. And he said something along the lines of call 911 and get inside. And then me and him and Hannah went into the machine shop. So that's what I mean.
So you heard something that sounded like fireworks, and about how long later did Thomas run around the corner?
I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was within a minute or two.
And do you know Thomas Fowler? Did you know him before that day?
I was familiar with him. We weren't especially close, though.
Was he with anybody else? Was there anybody else running in?
I don't remember exactly if there was another person running.
And you said that Thomas said, call 911 and get inside.
Yes, something along those lines. I don't remember his exact words.
So what did you do?
So I called 911.
Okay.
And got inside.
Did you have any idea what had happened at that point, or you just did what you were told?
I don't remember exactly when in the proceedings, exactly when it happened, but I think it was by the time we got inside the machine shops, Thomas had told us that there was a shooting had taken place. And it was then that I was starting to communicate with emergency services about that.
Did you notice any injuries on Thomas or anything like that you recall?
Yeah, I remember that he was he had an injury on his neck and he was bleeding.
So after you conveyed this to emergency services, what did you do next?
The point is I ended up handing my phone to Thomas so that he could continue talking with emergency services. And I remember staying in the machine shop for a little while until we were, I believe it was that I ended up going to the front of the building to help direct paramedics to come down the hallway. So we were in the machine shop for a while, and then I moved to the lobby.
So direct paramedics to come help Thomas or somebody else?
There was somebody else was injured in the north hallway of the building that I walked by, or that I ran by, actually.
Okay. So how did you get involved, like going through the building? Why didn't you just stay in the machine shop?
I don't remember why I initially left the machine shop. I can't remember if it was because police had at that point gotten to us, and moved us out front, or if it was because we had, if I had stuck my head out of the door and seen that somebody was injured, and so then went to the front. So I don't remember which of those happened first.
Okay. So you went to the front of the building, like through the lobby.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see anything when you got in the lobby?
Yeah, I saw that there were that there was somebody sitting on top of another man, kind of lying on the ground, and then at that point, I didn't take a very close look at that point because I was kind of running to try to get a hold of people, and then I went out the front doors and then helped direct people to come into the building.
Okay. So when you went out the front doors, there were security or aid or somebody out there that you brought back into the building?
Yes.
When you just kind of went through the lobby and saw what was going on in there, the man that was being held down, did you hear him say anything? Did you see him or register anything about him at all?
Yeah, I don't remember the man saying anything. My recollection is that he was fairly calm at that point. What I did notice a little bit later, as I was kind of looking more, that it looked like there were a pair of glasses kind of a little bit farther away, like they had been knocked off of his face. And so it seemed a bit like he had been sort of kind of like restrained, and at that point was fairly docile.
After you led the emergency personnel back to, did you bring them back to the person you saw in the hallway or to Thomas? Did you remember where you directed them?
Yeah, I believe it was that one of them stayed with the person who was in the hallway, and then the other person came with me all the way back to Thomas.
Okay. And then did you just mill about, or what did you do then?
At that point, I believe we were there for a short while, but we were eventually moved by police to the front of the building to stay in the lobby.
And then were you just there until kind of all this was done and gave a statement and stuff like that?
Yeah, more or less. We kind of were shifted around to different areas inside of the lobby, and then were taken out after probably about an hour or two.
So are you aware that Otto Miller Hall had several surveillance cameras?
Yes.
Or are you at least now
Yeah,
aware of that?
yes.
Okay. So I want to show you some stills. I want to make sure that when we do see the video, we know who we're looking at.
Yeah.
See if you can identify yourself.
And it states 89 through 94 marked.
Thank you. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as 89 to 94.
Maybe kind of 94. All right.
And I showed you these stills just briefly before you came to testify this
Mhm.
morning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Had you seen any of this video before?
I had not.
Take a look at those and let me know if you are in those stills and if they fairly and accurately depict kind of what you were doing that day.
Yeah, this is me in the red shirt on 89.
And I'm going to have you explain it to the jury. I just want you to take a look.
Oh, sorry,
Make
yes.
sure. No problem. Does it look like you?
Yes, they are.
The state moves to admit 89 through 94.
Admitted?
Looking at State's Exhibit 89, what is the jury looking at there?
This is a picture of the north side of Otto Miller Hall. This is the parking lot that I mentioned earlier. And that is me sitting in the red shirt next to a computer and a spectrometer, and that's Hannah Judd in, I believe it's kind of a dark shirt, dark top there, interacting with the telescope.
So this you guys working on your project in
Yes.
the parking lot? Can you state for the record what the date and time stamp of that still is?
The date of this says that it is June 5th, 2014, and it happened at 2:49:58 p.m.
Now looking at State's Exhibit 90, do you know is that a different angle of that same parking lot in you and Hannah?
Yeah, this is the same parking lot, just viewed from a different side.
Okay. And this is where you were for about an hour working on this project?
Yes.
All right, so on this exhibit, can you state for the record the date and timestamp?
Again, this is June 5th, 2014, occurring at 2:55:17 p.m.
And now looking at State's Exhibit 91, what's going on there?
At this point, this is me having kind of heard the sounds earlier and looking up to see Thomas running toward me.
And I don't know if you can see on yours, do you remember this other person sort of running down behind him, or you just don't recall whether it's with someone else at all?
I don't have a strong memory of the second person.
Okay. So can you state the date, timestamp for that photograph?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, June 5th, 2014, 3:24:41 p.m.
Okay, so about 30 minutes after the prior time shown you had. Okay. Now we are looking at State's Exhibit 92. Are you in that one too?
Yeah, again, that's me in the red shirt.
Okay, what are you doing now?
At this point, this is me running through the front lobby to run out the doors to help direct emergency services.
And the time on that is 3:28:53, is that correct?
Yes.
And then 93, and you outside bringing in?
Yes, that's me bringing in services.
I actually want to go back. This is State's Exhibit 94. That is, can you read the timestamp on that?
Yeah, the timestamp is 3:05:31 p.m.
And that's you and Hannah still working on your project?
Yes.
You see the gentleman right here in the white T-shirt?
Yes.
Do you recognize him?
No, I don't have a strong memory of that person.
Just one moment. That's all the questions I have. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Cross-examination.
No questions.
All right, you hand me those photographs, and you're all finished. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
State calls Clint Brummett.
You come forward here and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Could you tell us your name and spell your first and last name, please?
My name is Clinton Brummett, Clinton, Brumit.
And what is your occupation?
I work for the Safety and Security Department at Seattle Pacific University.
The Safety and Security Department?
Yes.
What is that exactly?
It's a private security department within the university.
Tell us how that works. Are you law enforcement officers? What
No.
are your jobs? What are your duties?
We're just security officers.
And what are your duties?
We patrol campus and answer various miscellaneous calls on campus.
What kinds of calls do you get?
Service calls, medical calls, internal fire alarm calls.
Do you ever get calls where a crime has been committed?
Occasionally, yes.
And do you make arrests?
We make citizens arrests when appropriate.
And that can be for a misdemeanor, is that correct?
Or a felony, yes.
Okay. Are you armed?
No.
And tell us a little bit about your background and training for this position.
We go through regular medical training. We're emergency medical responders, and we go through constant updates of training, hands-on type scenario training. And then we go through different security-based industrial training throughout the year.
Okay. And what is your background?
I've been at the university for 16 years. Before that, I do have some law enforcement experience.
Okay. And where did you do law enforcement?
In Oklahoma.
Okay. Now, what is your job with the Safety and Security Department?
I am the security operations supervisor.
And how many people do you have working for you?
We have 8 to 12 full-time staff.
Now, when you call yourself a primary responder, what does that mean exactly?
We have a dispatch, and people call the dispatch that they dispatch us to calls.
So if someone has something happen, say in a building, is there a protocol as to whether they're supposed to call you or 911 first?
They're encouraged to call both.
What happens if they call you and you determine it's something that the police need to respond to?
Then we will request dispatch to contact Seattle Police and to respond.
Okay, so you have contact with Seattle Police Dispatch.
Right.
All right. I'd like to direct your attention to June 5th of 2014. Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Had anything up until the shooting happened unusual happened that day, or was it a typical?
No, it's just a typical work day.
Spring day?
Yes.
Okay. And were there a lot of students on campus?
Yes.
Right. What happened about 3:25 or so?
I received a dispatch from the dispatcher that there was a person shot in front of Aldo Miller Hall, which is a building on campus.
And is that your dispatcher or the SPD dispatcher?
Our dispatcher.
Okay. And now, is it unusual to get a shooting?
Yes, very unusual.
All right. Did you give any thought to what you thought it might be, what kind of crime?
Well, I actually thought it may have been a robbery because that building sits alongside the canal, and there's a lot of walk-through traffic. So my first thought was maybe some sort of dispute or a robbery attempt.
So what did you do?
I responded to that location.
And when you got there, what did you see?
I saw one male subject laying on the ground. His head was facing toward the north, and I noticed a big puddle of blood had formed and was rolling down the hill from him.
And did you later learn that that was Paul Lee?
Yes.
Can you describe what you did when you saw him? Was he face down, face up?
He was face down. Myself and another security officer, Gus Carvajal, responded.
Gus Carvajal?
Yes.
Okay.
And we secured the area, make sure there were no immediate threats, and we checked for other possible injured persons. Once we felt okay that that area was semi-secure, we went to Paul.
Okay, now let's back up a little bit. When you said you checked the immediate area
Yes.
for threats, what do you mean? What were you looking for?
I was looking for a gunman because it was apparent that the loss of blood and it had been a major trauma to Paul.
Mhm. So when you looked around, you're talking about looking around outside the building?
Right, outside the building.
Okay. And you didn't see anybody that...
No. So we went back to Paul. I tried to flip him over so I could assess his injuries. And we had a hard time getting him over because he had a backpack on. So we had to cut the backpack off. When I got him over, I noticed a large wound on the left area of his neck, and then another wound on his right cheek.
What did you do?
I opened his airway, and then I checked for respiration and circulation,
How did you open his airway?
but slightly tilting his head.
Okay. Now, you've indicated that you're medical responders?
Yes.
So you have medical training?
Yes.
And when you checked his pulse and his breathing, what did you
I
find?
found that. So then I started CPR.
Okay.
And Gus, he was standing watch over me because we still didn't really know what was going on.
Gus was?
Yeah. And I asked him to attach the AED, the external defibrillator. And so I started, I did about 60 compressions.
Of his chest?
Yeah. And then I stopped to allow the AED to go through its function.
And the AED is what?
It's a small device that's used to shock the part back into rhythm.
Okay.
When I stopped in compression, we were waiting for the AED to tell us whether to proceed or not. He gasped, he caught his breath, he blew blood out, and his eyes rolled forwards.
Paul's did.
Yeah, paused it. Then I checked his pulse, and I found a strong but really erratic pulse.
Okay. So what did you do then?
I applied a pressure to his neck with a gauze.
And what was Gus doing?
Gus at that time had moved on to check for other possibly injured people in the area.
Now, what did you do with the wound that you saw?
I applied pressure to it to try to stop the bleeding. He had lost a large amount of blood. There's a large flowing amount of blood that you could see that had gotten out.
So what do you do at that point?
I would wait for further medical responders.
To show up?
Yes.
Okay.
And about that time, a police EMT arrived.
Okay. And did Gus get back to you?
As the police EMT arrived, I told him, I gave him a brief description of what had happened, the wounds I found. And at that time I heard Gus announce that, Clint, we have another person that's been injured inside. So I left that area with the police EMT attending, monitoring the pulse and the respiration and applying the compress to the neck, and I went inside the building.
So at that point, what are you thinking?
Well, then I was aware that we had an ongoing situation that was progressing from the street to the building.
Okay. So what was the plan?
The plan, at that time, I was focused on helping as many people as we could.
Okay. When you went inside, what did you see?
I noticed a large amount of shotgun shells on the floor, and Gus was yelling at me to come to the far north hallway. So I just focused on what my partner Gus was saying. I went to that area.
Okay, and what was in that far north hallway?
There's a female. I noticed blood on her pants, and she had a jacket pulled over her right shoulder area.
Mm-hmm. And did you later learn that was Sarah?
Yes.
And did you see the wound on Sarah?
I removed the jacket, and I noticed a hole about the size of a $50 in her right chest area, upper chest area.
So what did you do?
I asked Gus to hand me a roll of gauze, and I inserted the gauze into the wound, and then I applied a pressure compress over the wound.
Again, to try to stop the bleeding?
Yes. Then I checked her for further injuries.
Had you ever dealt with anything like this before?
I have not dealt with gunshots, but we do get major bleeds on campus, broken bones, sprained ankles, just more minor type of calls.
Okay. So once you had packed her wound and were applying pressure, what did you do?
I stayed with the patient.
Until when?
I noticed that the Seattle police were grouping around me to start a building search, and a Seattle Fire Department firefighter came, and I explained to him what the injury I found, where it was located, and I put his hand on the wound to hold pressure.
Okay. And how was Sarah in terms of consciousness?
She was alert and conscious.
Okay. Did you talk to her at all?
Yes, I asked her if she knew where the shooter was, who was the shooter, where he was at that time, and she told me she didn't know.
Okay. And what was Gus doing at this time?
At that time, Gus had moved on to search for more injured people. And I heard Gus yell, "I'm sending one toward you." And I saw a male walk toward me, and he had 15 small pellet holes across his chest and up. So I flagged him, since he was walking immobile, to go ahead and go out the front door to be with responders outside.
Okay. And did you later learn that was Thomas?
Yes.
Now, in that building, at that time of day, were you concerned at all about the number of kids in there?
Yes.
How many would you estimate?
There's multiple classes going on during that time of day. The building has a significant number of people inside. So at that time, I went out to the patrol car, and we have a mass casualty bag, and I grabbed that out of the trunk, anticipating more injured.
What's a mass casualty bag?
It contains just large amounts of medical supplies, and I was anticipating we would probably have more since it's an ongoing situation.
At some point, did you see John Neese and Mr. Ybarra?
I did not see them together. I did see John later. My dispatch had told me that there may be a second shooter. And she, on direction of a detective at dispatch, had guided me over to John
As
a
potential
potential second shooter. So I detained him at that time and brought him to a police officer nearby.
Okay. Did you cuff him or anything like that?
No, just by hand.
Okay. Was it later figured out why he was thought maybe he could be the second shooter?
I don't know. I would assume it was because they saw him and with his pepper spray and kind of holding it in a stance that might be indicative of a firearm.
Okay. So what did you do then?
At that time, I went back to Sarah in the fire department and put her on a carry canvas, and I assisted them in carrying her out of the building.
And after you helped with that, what did you do?
I returned to the building, and I was in the front area. Before I helped carry Sarah out, I gave my keys to the SWAT team commander that was in the area, and I did a quick synopsis of what the dispatcher was describing to me she had seen on camera throughout the building, but she didn't see any more casualties or any people moving.
Okay, so not asking you to disclose your security system, but the dispatcher can actually see in real time what's going on
That's
through those cameras?
Yes.
Okay. And when SWAT came, were you there when they entered the building?
Yes, but at that time I was asked by a Seattle police supervisor to, as students were leaving the building, do a quick check of weapons to make sure we weren't letting someone who shouldn't be living in the building leave.
Right.
Might be or involved.
Okay, so what did you do with the students that were leaving the building?
I just did a quick pat down as they were exiting the door.
Okay. And were they asked to put their hands up or anything like that?
Yeah, most of them had their hands up, and they were all cooperative and compliant.
Okay, why have them put their hands up?
I would assume to keep them from, if one of them were armed, to haven't had the access to a weapon.
Okay, so if they had a gun, they couldn't grab it or something
Right.
like that. Now, did you actually see Mr. Ybarra at some point?
I did. I went over to a police officer who was holding him, and I saw him at that point.
Okay. And could you tell if he was moving, put him up a struggle, anything like that?
No, when I saw him, he wasn't.
Was he talking at all?
No.
How would you describe what his face looked like?
I didn't see any acknowledgement or expression.
Did you see the shotgun shells around him?
Yes. And it looked like maybe there were several dozens of shells laying around him.
So what did you do at that point? What was your role for the rest of the...
Well, after I talked to John, I sat with John for a little bit. We did breathing exercises because I noticed he seemed like he was going into shock.
Okay.
So I tried to calm him.
What made you think he was going into shock?
He just had a zoned out look about him. His skin was turning white, and he looked really nervous, and he just went through a traumatic experience. So.
Of course. And so you did breathing exercises with him?
Yes,
Did that seem to help at all?
it did. But you could tell he was still nervous, but he did seem to calm down a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. And at some point, was he taken to the hospital as well?
Yeah, he was let out of the building.
Okay. So then what was your role for the rest of the...
Well, after I talked to John, I either got pepper spray or foam alcohol in my eyes, so I had to be let out of the building and decontaminated.
Okay. And how did you decontaminate?
Just with water.
All right. Splashing water on?
Yes, into my eyes, yeah.
Okay. And did you have more contact with the building that day?
No.
Okay. The pepper spray pretty much did it for
Right.
you.
Yeah, we just waited around. I gave my statement to a detective later, and that was my happenings that day.
Okay. I'm going to just a moment. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You're excused. I'm going to have you stand and stretch again. Please be seated.
State calls Officer Martinez.
You raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please be seated.
Could you tell us your name and spell your first and last name, please?
My name is Ricardo Martinez, Ricardo Martinez.
Okay. Are you holding your report there?
I am.
I'm going to grab that from you if I could. If we need to reference it, I'll give it back to you. And what is your occupation?
Seattle police officer,
How long have you been with Seattle Police?
7 years.
What are your duties currently?
Patrolman. Just patrol West Seattle right now. I worked downtown for 6 years. 3 years as a bike officer. I'm also trained as a King County EMT.
You're an EMT?
Yes.
Oh, geez. I'm going to ask you to speak up because we have a fan issue. Officer, were you on duty on June 5th of 2014?
I was, yes.
Can the jury hear? Barely. Can we
It's a
use the
little bit
microphone,
off there,
maybe?
but there's the bad microphone right there. You can actually, not that one, but yes, you can
Okay.
actually pick that up and speak in.
It's better.
Yes. Thank you.
You were on duty about 3:30 or 3:25 in the afternoon?
Yes.
Okay. Where were you on patrol?
I was patrolling Magnolia Green at the time.
And did you receive a call to respond to something at Seattle Pacific University?
Yes, SPD dispatch and broadcast, they report that a man had been shot at, I believe, 3rd Avenue West in West Nickerson.
And were you familiar with that area?
I was, yes.
So did you respond?
I did. I activated my lights and sirens and drove there.
When you arrived, what did you see when you turned down 3rd?
I took a left on 3rd. Another unit had got there prior to me, probably a couple seconds, or not sure the time frame, but that saw an individual lying on the ground.
Okay, you can just slow down a little bit?
Sure.
I can't follow you. Say it again.
I saw a body laying on the ground, on the concrete in front of the Miller's Hall. SD.
All right. And was he face down or face up? Do you remember?
He was, as I recollect, he was lying on his back, face up.
And was anyone with him?
At the time, it appeared Seattle Pacific security staff, or I'm not sure what their training was there assisting.
Okay. So what did you do?
I assumed control of Mr. Lee and attempted to provide medical aid for him, and had the other individuals leave, the security guards and whatnot, due to the fact that they were unarmed, as well as we weren't sure if there were any more shooters or any other suspects on scene.
Now, how would you describe his condition when you got there?
He was in a bad state. He was lying on his back, and there was severe gun trauma to his upper left throat area. He was kicking his feet. He had a hard time breathing. He was gagging, making guttural sounds, and spitting up blood and whatnot.
Did you try to talk to him at all?
I did my best. I've been to stabbings, shootings, and all that kind of stuff, and what usually happens with people, because there's different stages of the shock. Now, that trauma was kind of significant, but you can maybe talk to them and see if there's someone else. Do they have a description, last known direction of travel, or something, some information that would help us
And
secure the scene.
Did you try that with him?
I did.
Did you have any success?
No, I did not.
Could you tell if he was losing consciousness?
My years on the street, it's something they don't teach you, but you kind of see the spark leave somebody. Just looking at them, they're in deep agony. There was a tongue depressor in there because they tried to open his airway initially prior to my arrival. However, it was kind of complicating his breathing process. So I had to remove that. He started spouting up more blood and whatnot, so it's kind of rolling to his side a little bit so he can breathe easier.
Okay.
But in turn, he's not able to verbalize anything.
Okay. So what did you do?
I removed that. I attempted to talk to him again, just basic questions: what's going on? Who are you? Do you know the person who did this? What they look like? And he's unable to respond. But during that time, there aren't that many officers there, so I have a few other folks that are kind of pulling security, but also checking to see if anyone else is in the school still. So at the time, my attention somewhat divided between worried about getting shot myself, as well as the victim, or other officers as well. So.
And did you hear anything about the potential of another shooter or another victim, anything like that?
The scene was pure chaos at that time. The problem with our radios, especially on the north slope of Queen Anne, it's kind of in a dead spot. So you couple that with a lot of other officers responding in agencies, and what happens, it's called bonking. So you click your radio, don't, someone else is trying to transmit at the time, or you can't get a clear reception. So my mic is up here, so I'm trying to work on Mr. Lee, but at the same time my hands are soaked in his blood and wearing gloves. So I'm trying to bonk it with my chin, so I'm getting blood on my face and whatnot, and I have to pay attention to the other officers as well as my rear, my front, and my side. So it's very hard to communicate at that time. I'm not sure if anything came out over the air.
Okay. Did you hear anything from any other officers at the scene?
Yeah, at the time, we thought we heard there was multiple shooters, just because of the chaos, and there was a lot of shotgun shells strewn about. So at that time, I believed and felt there were more than one person there.
Okay. So what happened then?
After I tried working on Mr. Lee, see how paramedics came in and assumed control of him and his medical treatment. After that, I pulled out my glove, pulled out my Glock, and did my job of searching the building for other shooters.
Okay, your Glock is your handgun?
Duty pistol, yes.
Okay. Now, when you went in, did you actually go into the building?
Yes.
Did you have the gun in your hand?
Well, mine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think you referenced it in your report as being in the SUL position. What is that?
Oh, sorry. It's Sul. It's Portuguese, which means south. So what they teach us in training is you don't want to flag someone unnecessarily with the muzzle of your pistol. So if you're, say, behind another officer, or going through without a direct threat, you keep it pointed south. Your finger's index, which means your index finger is in the high part of the slide. So if you have a sympathetic reaction, which means a loud bang goes off, I don't have my finger on the trigger, I'm not going to jerk it. That's how we do it.
Okay. So when we see it on TV and they're running with their guns, that's not accurate?
It is and it is not. In certain applications, most certainly. You know, if you have a direct threat, in front of you, sure. You can move, shoot, communicate, all that kind of stuff. But if you're in a transitory mode, which is what we're trained by our department for active shooters, which is what we consider a school shooting, is you safely move until a threat presents itself. And then you draw down.
So what did you do once you got inside?
Formed a team with other officers, and we went methodically through all the buildings. They're still full of students and staff. Most of them were pretty scared, hiding in the desk and whatnot, crying.
And when you got to the rooms, what did you do?
Slowly but surely, again, we don't know at this time. The intelligence is kind of, the communication is broken down at this point. The radio is just useless. You know, it comes through in patches here, there, it's fuzzy, it's static and whatnot. So we're still operating on the assumption that there's still more people. So one by one, and sometimes, with terrorist attacks or anything else, there may be an embedded person within the group. So you have to make sure and ensure that you're not filtering people who are not having been checked yet to the safe zones or the medics are, and those unarmed people, social workers and whatnot. So you go through, hey, lift your shirt a little bit, turn around, do a quick pack down, no weapons, no nothing serious. So
Of the students?
of the students, yes.
Okay. And were they then allowed to leave the building?
Yes, I didn't do that part. Once they filtered past myself and the other officers in the room with me, they went to another unit. I'm not sure who it was, and we continue on our search.
Okay. So did you do both the first and the second floors?
I recall doing, I know the second floor, for sure. The first floor, maybe a bit of it, but.
At some point, were you allowed to basically stand down?
Yes.
What happened to have that happen?
Well, the search had been completed by other officers and units, and then once it's kind of in a semi-safe zone, I guess you could say, the command staff shows up, media, other entities as well from the county, all that kind of stuff. We establish support on, and then we move from there, kind of just make it bigger.
So were you allowed to leave at that point?
No,
Okay, what'd you do?
I just stood by, looked around, noticed some pieces of evidentiary value, a shotgun shell as well as blood splatter on a truck. So
Okay, and where did you see the shotgun shell?
it was pretty close to Mr. Lee.
Okay. And did you notify somebody of that?
Yes, I notified our detective, Bob Fowler.
And Detective Butler is part of the homicide unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what did you do after that?
I waited, and then we got released eventually, and I went to Harborview for a blood exposure, possible, unknown, just because it's near my eyes.
Right.
I'm unsure of what's going on with people and their bodies and that kind of stuff. So,
Okay. If I could have just a moment. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
No question.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're going to take our morning break. So we'll take a recess for 15 minutes, come back and continue with the meeting with the chairs. All right, we're at recess.